Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So when the title Punisher One Last Kill started making the rounds online, man, a collective chill just went right through the comic book community. Think about it. For a character like Frank Castle, a guy whose entire mythos is built on this endless, brutal crusade, finality has literally always been the one thing completely missing from his story. This doesn't sound like just another revenge arc, you know? It sounds final, like absolutely final. Today, we're diving straight into what actually happens when an unstoppable force finally meets its own ending. Let's get right into it.
It is so incredibly easy for us to get caught up in the standard action tropes with this character, right? The gunfire, the tactical gear, the absolute devastation Frank Castle leaves in his wake. But the source material gives us this absolutely crucial insight. The brutality isn't actually what makes the Punisher so compelling. It's the emotional emptiness behind it. To really grasp the massive weight of One Last Kill, we've got to pivot our focus entirely away from the physical violence and look straight into Frank's psychological depths. Basically, the violence, that's just a symptom. The real disease is that massive void inside him.
And because of that void, this title tells us we aren't just looking at a temporary unretirement or a brief return to vengeance. No way. He is hitting a definitive breaking point. As the analysis points out, Frank is reaching this critical threshold where the violence itself literally cannot continue without totally destroying whatever is left of the man he used to be. We're not talking about a mission objective to be cleared here. We are looking at the absolute end of the line.
So let's break down Frank's internal state, which honestly is kind of like a steep, dark staircase into his psyche. First off, he is trapped in this constant cycle of war and loss. He's never actually escaped the horrific tragedy that created him in the first place. And as for any hope for a brighter tomorrow, yeah, that died a long, long time ago. Frank isn't out there fighting to save the world anymore. That optimism is completely gone. Instead, what does he do? He weaponizes his own suffering. He turns that pain into his sole purpose, simply because he just doesn't know how to exist without it anymore. He's basically become this perpetual motion machine of violence.
So how do we actually define his crusade now? I mean, think about it. Every criminal he hunts down, every single gang he tears apart, every war he wages, none of it is actually about achieving justice. The material makes this abundantly clear. Instead, it's a man attempting the impossible. He is violently trying to silence trauma that just never, ever actually leaves him. When you look at it like that, it completely redefines his whole war. It's really just an unwinnable battle against his own relentless grief, played out on the streets day after day.
Which, of course, forces us to ask a really heavy question. Is Frank Castle finally searching for closure here? Or is this final mission just another step into deeper self-destruction? Now that we've diagnosed his psychology, we really have to look at what Frank is actually trying to accomplish at the very end of his rope. The whole concept of a last kill pushes us right to the absolute edge of his motivations.
And this perfectly sets up two violently diverging fan theories for his finale. On one hand, you have ultimate sacrifice. Maybe Frank finally accepts the incredibly tragic reality that his war can never truly end as long as he is actually alive to fight it. But then on the other hand, we might be looking at a total loss of humanity. We could see a version of the Punisher who just completely abandoned those final desperate fragments keeping him grounded, turning into a complete monster. It's a super stark contrast, right? We're talking either a tragic, noble end or a total freefall into absolute darkness.
But honestly, regardless of which theory proves true, the title alone carries this profound, incredibly heavy sense of inevitability. When you have a man who has spent literally his entire life at war with the world, and let's be real, even more importantly, at war with himself, there are only so many ways the story can logically end. This isn't some shock value surprise twist, it's the unavoidable destination he has been speeding towards since day one.
Because underneath all that visceral brutality we were talking about earlier, underneath the iconic skull logo and the endless arsenal of weapons, this is fundamentally a story about a character completely trapped in grief. And that, right there, is exactly why the Punisher mythos continues to resonate so strongly with all of us. One Last Kill really feels less like an action-packed comic story and much more like the heartbreaking finale of a man dealing with a profound, deeply rooted inability to heal.
Frank Castle built an entire existence out of his own suffering. So now that we are staring down his final act, we really have to face a pretty tragic reality to wrap up this explainer. Think about this as you leave today. When pain becomes your absolutely only purpose, is a peaceful end even possible?